Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This mega show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Witch Watch Season 1, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, this episode obviously gives us a better introduction to Khan, and we learned that there's beef between Tengu and ogres. They never really got into what the specifics was, but it just seems like it's a deep-rooted issue between their species for whatever reason. And obviously you also have like Khan being like, I think it was like his dad told him like to basically like never get outshined essentially by an ogre, and because he's a big fan of Demon Slayer, but he's like, why is it Demon Slayer not Tengu Slayer? And just like he hates that ogres are so, I guess, like amongst like those type of beings, it's like they're the most famous of them, and it's like Tengus don't get any love or whatever. So that I guess plays into why Khan like immediately is talking it up with Nico and kind of ignoring Morihito. But it's also like, well, he hasn't seen like Nico in like 3 years, so he's kind of catching up a little bit. But you can also see his eyes darting back towards Morihito, because I think he's trying to make him jealous too, like, oh yeah, like leaving you out of the conversation. But Morihito is very like stern and just matter of fact, of just like, I need to understand why you're here. Like, why have you been hiding this entire time? Because he was sent by Nico's mom, and I was like, that's interesting. But then if you were sent, how long ago were you sent by Nico's mom for you to be here now and everything? And why like why not reveal yourself immediately? Well, he also comes with a warning too, because it turns out there was another prophecy specifically that there's an enemy of Nico's at school. So you're like, interesting. So the threat is at school, because I think probably would never cross Morihito's mind that that'd be the place you'd, because everyone there seems to be a normal human to their knowledge. So what would the issue be? But there's an enemy there. Not unless they haven't gotten there yet, and eventually it'll transfer there, or they've just been biding their time. Who knows? Obviously, just another thing they've got to keep from Nico, because the whole purpose is to try and give her as much of a normal life and enjoy being at school and having all those friends, you know? So, but obviously, because Morihito is the way he is, like every word he says cuts Khan to his like core, because it's just like, I don't think about Tengus. I have no beef with Tengus. I don't even I'm very indifferent towards him, because he's looking at like the cold, dark stare in Morihito's eyes. It's like, to be fair, Morihito's kind of got that eyes towards everyone, but maybe even unbeknownst to Morihito, more of that's coming out even more so because he's in front of a Tengu. I think it's just a clashing of like, you know, that odd coupling personality between Khan's personality and Morihito's, and just them just, you know. I also love that Nico, trying to resolve this, uses two spells this episode. One, she ended up bringing an umbrella to life, and it's basically explaining a lot of this back lore. And also, it's the one that points out the real reason why Khan is here. He didn't just get this job out of nowhere. The reason why it was given to him is he has a massive amount of debt, because he spent a lot of money on mobile games, and anytime one of his people younger than him are out to eat, he always pays for it. So his wallet is super light, and he's amassed a large amount of debt, and because of that, he was going to run away. But then Ibuki, Nico's mom, ended up giving him this job, so it was kind of the perfect excuse. So I was like, oh, that's the real reason why you're here. Especially later on, we find out in actuality he was always meant to live with them, and you're like, wait, if you're always meant to live with them, then for one, where have you been living this entire time? Turns out he had his own apartment and stuff like that, but he was splurging so much on money and stuff because he wowed out because he was living alone. You're like, oh, so that's why you decided to reveal yourself now, because you needed somewhere to live, because you burned through all your money and now you're trying to mooch off of them. Because he was trying to make such a point about like, oh, like Nico shouldn't stay at Morihito's place. It's so interesting because like the point was for you all to live together, but I guess his pride got the best of him. I'm like, oh, I don't want to stay with an ogre who doesn't like me, even though he's giving off the same energy as Morihito, but he's putting it mainly on Morihito of like, oh, an ogre having issues with Tengu. It's not that we care so much about what ogres think about us, but ogres don't care, you know. So I thought that was fascinating. But also, Nico's other spell ended up being like these snacks. She ends up like using a friend deal, I think is what the spell was called. And it was like, okay, so what's going to be the downside to this? It's interesting because like the spell makes the first person who eats it, the second person who eats after them ends up being like the draw of their affection. And I thought it was supposed to be a thing of the moment Khan ate it after Morihito that he'd feel the same way, but it's like no, it she did say like it's a one-way thing, but I thought that it meant that it would start off that way and then becomes a two-way thing. It's like no, it always passes the buck to the next person, which I didn't understand that until we got the development of that spell. But it's like yeah, like Morihito being like my chest wants to burst. I was like, oh, kind of didn't turn out the way Nico wanted it to. Obviously, Nico likes Morihito, so it's like, oh, him feeling that way towards Khan. But I also don't know if she was viewing that as just a friendship thing, or I mean, we don't know. Like, you never know. Nico could be, that is like the stereotype of like, oh, like girls are into yaoi, so she might have been all for that. But then she was also like, wow, this spell didn't go the way I thought it was because he's over there like, ooh, let me touch your shoulder. I want to wrap my arm around your shoulder. And Khan's like, what's your obsession with trying to wrap what's your obsession with my shoulder? He's just like, give me your shoulder. I'm like, why? That sounds so creepy, even in context, which is Morihito being like, give me your shoulder. I want your shoulder. I want to wrap my arm around you. And it's like, it's meant to be a buddy thing, but still, it's hilarious. And especially when, he helps kids get this balloon out of a tree later, and then Khan dropped the snack, and then one kid ate it, and now Khan wants that kid's shoulder. That next kid eats it and is obsessed with that kid, but then like the dog eats it, and the dog ends up being the kid before ends up being obsessed with the doll, and then by the time Morihito catches up with all of them, and like they all kind of like hugging and form this like, as Khan puts later on, this beautiful arc, which was kind of like there's something beautiful about it, especially because like you go down like the heights. Cause you start with Morihito, then Khan, then one of the kids, the other kid, and then the dog at the very end. I was like, there is something cute and adorable about that. But then we kind of get into a dangerous situation when Nico opens a box of clothes sent by her mom, but one of them ended up kind of being this sentient clothes. Like someone had used magic to grab Nico and is basically constricting her body. And now they have to fly after her, but it's like, well, turns out Khan can't fly because apparently the Tengu over generations have lost their wings, so they don't directly have the ability to fly, which is interesting. And I wonder, will that be rectified? So interesting considering like he basically has wind magic, so I guess that kind of compensates. We haven't seen him properly use it on himself. He's used it for offensive purposes, and obviously like agility purposes on other people. He's utilized it this episode, but not on himself. So I'm curious how that's going to play out. But either way, he talks to the crows and he has them follow Nico, and they were able to track her down, but he's still high in the air. It's like, how do we get him? And so Umbrella is there to kind of, well, Brelly as he wants to be called, is there to help. And Khan uses his magic to fly Morty into the air, and he uses his ogre strength to break the clothes. And obviously Nico gets to safe landing, but Morihito doesn't. And I love that he's literally like, you're lucky I know the ogre falling technique. I'm like, there's a technique for, I guess it's like if you ever get too high in the air and just, I mean, it didn't seem like there was much technique to it because it seemed like he just fell, but I guess maybe it's like if you channel your chi or your energy into your body so that you absorb some of the impact and don't fully suffer it. Maybe that's the justification. But obviously it asks the big question of, well, this will most likely continue, but Morty and Khan are promising like, well, we'll try to protect like your life so you can keep enjoying it. But for, Nico, she's hoping this situation, and it does, but even though they still fight like, well, I was about to say cats and dogs, more like Tengu and ogres, Nico points out and like looks back on everything and realizes like you two are a lot more similar because you're both lonely and too stubborn to admit it. Because they both never, I think Nico is like one of their only friends. Because in Morihito's case, it's like, I don't have I can't really. I'm not normal, so it's not easy being friends with people. Especially living in like the human world. But then, like, who knows? We didn't really get into why Khan doesn't have many friends, but maybe it's just who he is. It's interesting because he has a very friendly personality, but for whatever reason, Nico is the person he latched onto. So, but it's like, yeah, and especially around the same time of like when she was friends with Morihito at a young age, it reflects similar to when her and Khan became friends at a young age too. But it's like, yeah, Morihito's very serious. He tries to do everything perfectly, but Nico's like, someone like Khan kind of balances you out. Someone like him and his personality, it's kind of like, once again, you have the very serious type and you have the goofy type, and it's like you both can like compensate for each other's like failings in a means in a way. So it all works out in the end. They're trying to make an effort going forward, but also we find out Khan is, and that's what I was saying, like very friendly. So him not really having many friends growing up, I think is interesting. But even Khan was like, yeah, it's not going to be easy to bury that hatchet between like the bad blood between Tengu and ogres, but they're going to try and make an effort, especially if it means, this harmonious life with, Nico and everything. And we find out he's friendly with everyone in the neighborhood. The kids he just met, he's friendly with them and their grandfather and other people in the neighborhood. It's like, how did you do that in such a short amount of time? It's like, that's just his personality. And then the episode ends with them playing Yu-Gi-Oh together. I was like, oh God, I love that. Once again, the references on top of references. I'm like, man, I've never seen an anime have this blatant references, and that's why I'm like, I wonder is this from the manga or is like the anime doing that? Is that like the animators and writers having fun like that, or maybe is it written in a? I'd assume it's written in a script and not just. You never know. The animators could have just done that and it was retroactively written into the script. I don't know. I'm so curious to know if like the manga's that referential, because I feel like you probably get references like that way more in a manga or a manhwa or a webtoon than you would like an anime. I would feel like there'll be like maybe some like real world references, but like referencing other anime and manga to this extent, which is, once again, just also interesting too, just like when you parallel it with like Nico and her mom are into like manga that have been around for a very long time versus like Khan's dad, who's super into Demon Slayer, which is a fairly recent manga in the past decade. So it's just it's interesting how that all like plays out, So different taste and stuff like that, I guess. But yeah, something that crossed my mind because the whole point of that clothing being sentient the way it was is that it was brought about by magic. So whoever the enemy is has magic. So you're immediately like, huh, is it, like I said, like we've talked about witches, but we haven't really gone down like whether or not there's like warlocks in this universe, or are male witches also called witches too? Like, are there a lot of men that just are able to use magic? Is this kind of like a Wheel of Time situation? That whole conversation. But what I was also wondering is like, well, we know witch hunters exist, because I was wondering like, could one of the antagonists be a witch hunter, and that's what this could be all about? What if it's a witch hunter who could use magic? What if that's the case? I could definitely see that potentially being a story beat. I don't know. I'm curious to see like who this antagonist is and who are they coming at? Why are they coming after Nico? Because there's an enemy at the school. But like obviously does this, and I'm curious, are those two separate things? The enemy at the school and the dog and rain prophecy that Nico got, that Morihito got last episode. Are those the same prophecy? Or are those two separate prophecy, being two separate issues? I'd assume they're one and the same, but we'll have to wait and see. Like, I'm sure like Ibuki's getting pieces of it more and more as time is going by. So some very, very interesting developments. We'll ultimately have to wait to see where it all takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.